Hey everybody, it's Tammy from Unbreak Your Life. How are you? It is just mere days away from Christmas, and I wanted to share some thoughts with you. I had an experience when I was out in Colorado with my husband over the Thanksgiving week, and something happened that I thought was pretty profound. So we had endured like 16 inches of snow and we went to the grocery store because we were going to contribute to our Thanksgiving festival that we were having at his sister's house. And so, when you drive in the streets in Colorado and any of those towns where they know that it's going to snow, they have snow plows that come and take off all the snow off the street. They throw salt and stuff on the streets. I don't know what it is, but something different, I think. But anyway, so we went the day after the snow and went to the grocery store. But the grocery store parking lot wasn't as beautifully plowed as the streets were. And Bruce told me that it's because the parking lots are owned by the people who own the shopping center. And they have to have somebody come in, so they may not have had as good results as what they do out on the street. So anyway, so it's kind of precarious. There were slushes of snow and a little bit of potholes, and it was just ugly and wet and just messy. But um, the people who live there are used to it, and they dress accordingly with boots and everything. But this California girl is not used to the weather, but I did bring my boots, but they weren't the kind of boots I needed. But I made it. We made it um, uh, into our parking spot. We backed into it because he overshot it, but that's okay. We got a front view of everybody walking through the parking lot from their cars into the grocery store. So we were able to fill two grocery bags, and so one of each of us carried one. Then I was carrying a cup of coffee, which is so good. There, it's at Whole Foods. It's called Allegro Coffee. Go get some. Yeah, that's a plug. Anyway, so we got in our car, and Bruce is getting in on his side, and we both noticed that there were people taking their carts to their car in this slushy mess. And we noticed this one woman who was kind of right in front of us to the left on the other side, walking through this mess as well. And we looked at each other and thought, oh, what are we going to do? She's looking like she's having a little bit of a problem. So my husband started to get out of the car to go help her. But then she started making a few inches steps towards her car in the way she was going, but then she stopped. So he started to get out of the car, and then she started to make some strides. So he was kind of doing this little dance a couple of times before he finally got out of the car to go help her, because at one point she actually got in front of the cart to pull it with her, and I could just see that not being a good thing with her falling on her behindy. But anyway, so he helped her and took her a few feet. I could see that they were having a dialogue, but I couldn't tell what they were saying. But then he started coming back to the car, and I thought, okay, we left her there, but she's still stuck. And so when he got in the car, I said, what happened? She's still stuck. He said, I know. She didn't want me to help her. So I got to thinking, how often have you refused a genuine act of kindness? Bruce was not discouraged by this woman's refusal of assistance, but it got me thinking about both sides of this interaction. When anyone goes out of their way to help another person, it is a conscious, deliberate choice to immediately stop what they're doing and place themselves into the other person's environment, giving of themselves and to that individual. Usually, an individual they don't even know. So, but why would someone refuse help like this? Not just in this case, but in many other situations. So I got to thinking, the person that is the recipient of this form of generosity has the capacity to receive the help or not. They can make the decision as to whether or not they receive that help. But how often do people not receive it? If if they graciously receive the help, then there's a positive interaction between the two, which can give them both that warm, fuzzy feeling, of the kind where you are uplifted and you're feeling a little lighter and that you matter and have made a difference in the life of the other person. There's a vulnerability that is linked to doing what my husband did. It's a decision that comes from a deep caring of others and a selflessness that is envied by many. My husband used to be an EMT, and he has a radar for people in need, like this lady in the parking lot. And I witness lots of random acts of kindness, and I'm sure you do too, all day long, with people maybe holding the door open for me and as I'm entering a building, or getting into an elevator, or allowing another car to enter in front of you as you're on the freeway or the street in front of them. And I know it really does happen, believe it or not. But it's bigger actions like this one that didn't take Bruce, my husband, much effort to do, that makes such a difference to other people. So, but I didn't see anybody else coming to the aid of this woman while he was vacillating back and forth trying to get out of the car. But he was the only one that went to her rescue. So that got me thinking again, what is it that makes people refuse help? What is it about people who refuse help? And then I was having this conversation with my brother-in-law, and he reminded me of the fact that we just don't know what other people's experiences are in their lifetime. And I know this to be true, but I'm thinking she must have had a good reason, right, to refuse my husband's help. What could that be, though? So I got to thinking a little bit more. I go down these rabbit holes. I'm a deep thinker. I'm a researcher. This is what I kind of do. So I have some thoughts and some theories, but you may have a few of your own. Theory number one, maybe she thinks she's undeserving. As I witnessed the interchange between my husband and this woman, I could see that she never looked at him. She was talking, but not acknowledging him at all by looking him in the eyes. She may have been embarrassed that what she used to be able to do, she can't no longer do because when she was younger. So embarrassment is often interpreted as shame. Although there is some overlap, embarrassment and shame are distinct constructs. Embarrassment comes when our weaknesses are exploited, and shame is a response to something that is morally wrong or reprehensible and arises from measuring our actions against moral standards and discovering that they fall short. So she may think that her inability to push her cart is a reprehensible thing in her eyes, but she may be having a hard time with aging. So that could be one reason she might be embarrassed. Number two, I thought of, was she afraid of him? I thought, well, in the middle of the day in a grocery store parking lot with all kinds of people around. So my husband's not a big man and would not give any woman any pause to think he could take them out or be a danger to them. So, but if she grew up in an environment where she was threatened regularly, allowing herself to experience or trust a random act of kindness would be tantamount to letting her guard down. Psychologist John Bowlby originated his work on attachment theory as a lasting psychological connectedness between human beings. There may have been trauma connected to any attempt to attachment for this woman. So, in this context, she would derive a positive emotion from his offer of assistance. And then she couldn't risk that, though. So, if she was in this heightened state of threat assessment, she would fail to recognize, process, and pay attention to any positive actions, words, or facial expressions made by my husband. So, attachment trauma carries fear around like a shield of protection. So that's one theory. Two theories. Theory number three, maybe she was confused. So again, as my brother-in-law was saying, in our conversation that we don't know any of her experiences, and I contend that she may not know them herself. Could it be possible that she may have been experiencing an episode of dementia? I know I have experienced this with my mom. She will sometimes ask me to do something for her, and then when I do it, she gets upset and pushes me away, telling me that she never asked for me to do that for her. So I didn't ask my husband if the woman she was helping got angry or not, but not all dementia victims react in the same way. So it could have been a slight area of dementia. So that could be it. That's theory number 3. Theory number 4 is maybe she's not experienced this kind of generosity before, and it surprised her. I mean, it could happen. I cannot imagine, though, living a life as long as this woman has and to not ever been offered that kind of help before. She may truly not know how to deal with this level of kindness, and it may have been a very unsettling moment for her. Inexperience often reacts in fear. Fear often manifests as insecurity, and both often act out in anger. So, theory number 5 I have is pride. She may be suffering from pride. Pride in that she is so concerned about her ability to do a task on her own that she needs to prove to any extent that she is more than capable of taking care of herself. Like I said, I don't know how old this woman was, but I'm sure she was much older than me, older to the age in which she would place her in an era when women were starting to be very vocal about seeking equal rights and being self-sufficient in her younger years. That time was not so long ago, but there was extreme self. My cat is being crazy behind me. I'm so sorry. It's distracting me. You may see her. I don't know. She's jumping around. Anyway, that was an era when women were starting to be very vocal about seeking equal rights and being self-sufficient, being on their own, saying, I can do this. I am woman, hear me roar. And I know women her age that still hold to a virtuous stand that they are self-sufficient and don't need a man. When pride is viewed as a virtue, it is in its ability of greatness, of magnanimity, my cat, I'm sorry, that can get in the way of enjoying the gifts, even the smallest of ones, that may be placed right in front of them. But does that do to a person, but what does that do to a person who is reaching out to offer genuine help? What does it do to the person who is being caring and loving and giving in that moment? There may be a feeling of rejection. After all, rescuers make their moves straight from the heart. They have a high regard for other human beings, and in their act of selflessness, they're offering a piece of themselves unsolicited and without expectation. So I asked Bruce how he felt about that lady rejecting his attempts to offer help, and he said nothing. She'll get to her car eventually, kind of how he said it. He is so pragmatic, but I'm telling you that if it were me, I would not have had the same reaction. I would have gotten on my high horse and thought how ungrateful she was for not receiving such a gracious, gift. And I would have gone so far as to evaluate her inability to successfully trek through all that messy parking lot mess, and even go so far as to predict her outcome. And look, here we go. I've got help. All right, now you guys, I'm not the only one who would have come to that conclusion. I know. So, but this was a lesson for me, though, to step back and take a better look at myself. And I want you to think about this as well and give yourself the opportunity to step back and think a little bit about the giving and receiving of gifts this year. This holiday season, as we ready ourselves for the heightened experience of giving and receiving gifts of all kinds, may we consider our attitudes toward how we receive them and as well as how we give them. Being mindful of others, where they are in their lives, can help us be gentler to them as well as to ourselves. So let's think a little bit about how we receive gifts and knowing where that person is coming from when they are giving them. And as we're giving gifts, may we be more thoughtful about where that person may be in their lives to be able to receive those gifts. So that's my ponderance, and that's my thank you, no thank you option for this season. And I just hope that you go through this holiday season blessed. And thank you. Leave me some comments. I would love to hear from you. And have a wonderful holiday season. Bye bye.